I'd like to welcome everybody to our roundtable. It's our first sort of roundtable of, well, in a while, actually, Lionel. We did one last year at this time, around this time.
Oh, was it a year?
Yeah, more than a year ago, where we just had a few folks from the community and association to talk about what was happening in what is happening in the space. But I want to welcome everyone. Just a very quick sort of a recap of what the AsiaVR Association is all about. Little plug, we're regional, fully not-for-profit association folks focused on promoting dialogue, debate, collaboration, investment into this obviously rapidly evolving area of technology innovation. Our members are really from every walk of life you can think of, various disciplines, whether it's including user interface, application development. We've got a lot of developers in our ecosystem, and I have to commend Roy and others in the team for really driving that ecosystem of developers and engagement in the local community to obviously VR documentary filmmaking, branded content creation, and beyond. So that's my spiel about the AsiaVR Association. So I'll hand it to Roy to take it from there to do some more introductions. Oh yeah, by the way, I'm Don Anderson, and I'm totally forgot about that. Chair of the association, and I have a little consultancy called Cadaddle, which is all about kids and family content. Over to Roy.
I'm Roy over here. So together with Don, we still are running the AsiaVR Association. So we've been doing that since I think 2015, I think for Don. And I joined in 2016. Yeah. So that was before I even set up my company, Ignite VR then. So I was just I started as a member normally, just a normal member, just going to check it out stuff. And then afterwards, I started to organize things together with Don and the other members. And then, boom, I became a board member as well. So yeah, it was really popular back in the 2016 and 2017, those years. We used to have a meetup once every month or sometimes even twice. Those days were crazy. And then after a while, it started to die down. And in the meantime, I think in 2017, I was running my own VR startup, Ignite VR. We did many things from retail to game development to events and stuff like that. And then this year, I think I transitioned from running my startup to becoming an employee again. Yeah. So right now I'm doing robotics engineering, but I'm still keeping an eye on the Metaverse and what VR and AR has seems to become a more mature product. My company is still running Ignite VR, yeah, and it's still thriving, I would say. But personally, I think on my own personal growth, I decided to take a step back to actually work on that. Yeah, so that's me. Yeah, you still see me around because AsiaVR is something that I'm really still very invested in to see how this community can grow. Yeah.
Thanks, Roy. Should we go to Casie?
Yeah. All right. What's up, everybody? My name is Casie. I am the Singapore chapter president of the AsiaVR Association. That one is a for-profit association. I want to make that one clear. I'm also the founder of a startup that comes out of the Tel Aviv University, doing soft optics, also metamaterials for augmented reality, for low-cost, lightweight, and AR glasses that can go on any shape, any size, and on prescription lenses. We have not announced what our company name is yet, and that should be coming very shortly when we finish our fundraising round. In the meantime, while I'm waiting for that, I work as a consultant helping companies take advantage of grant funding programs within Singapore and also through Europe. And then I decided to automate some of the requests that I would get from startups and from investors. Seems like both sides want to meet each other and they don't know how to do it. So I prototyped a matching tool using augmented reality filters where startups can go in and enter their information, and the same thing for the investors. And then I match them up. So that's me.
Fantastic. You're busy, Casie. And you have a family too, don't you?
Yeah, can you hear my kids in the background? I have two daughters, yes.
Thanks so much. Lionel, over to you.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, so Lionel, I run Immersively. So I'm also an employee now. We got acquired middle of this year. So we are subsumed under SME, and we form a new business unit within Top Technologies, which specializes in CDN and cybersecurity. So we are the XR unit. We are still doing what we do, which is our work is usually under NDA. It's a heavy tender system, 9 months of work. So we digitally twin a lot of training solutions, essentially for Industry 4.0. But with the incoming inquiries, a lot of people have been asking, do you build this for blockchain? Do you build that? So I think we have to rise to the occasion, never say no to clients, right? So we have to rise to the occasion and see how we can meet their needs and build them some of these virtual lands. So we're starting off with one of these virtual land kind of a platform on one of the blockchains, and then looking at how we can actually push it out to a POC.
Fantastic. Well, let's get into it. It's been a year, Lionel, as we were talking, more than a year ago since we last kind of did our little roundtable session with a few folks. But it has been just mental in the last little while. I mean, it wasn't so long ago when we were in the Google office that we were talking about how quiet it was kind of in the, quiet had gotten in that XR VR space, right? And then, of course, in the last 2 weeks, we've just had a raft of announcements from every angle possible. And I'll list this very quickly soon. But back in the day, like there was all kinds of cancellations at the time when we spoke. I know this is a couple of years back. Google had canned a few of its own projects, hardware discontinued. Others, there was always that article of like the death of VR. Right? Yeah. Like even at the start of this year, there was articles that we were seeing popping up. It's the end of VR. What? But everything has changed. Everything has turned upward, and it seems like we're in another cycle where, a lot of this coming out because Zuckerberg and his executives said Metaverse 20 times in their Q2 earnings report, and it's been game on ever since then. But have things really changed that much for the space beyond all of those kind of conversations and hype? What do you think, Lionel? Where are we at?
I was hoping not the first, not to be the first to answer.
Thrown into the deep water, brother.
I mean, there's a lot to talk about, right? But I think because from this side of the world, we see a lot happening on the other side of the world. And of course, the tech giants are the ones that have major influence to the rest of the world. So we kind of see the news from there. But I mean, in trying to make sense of some of these things, I have also taken a lot of time to stop and join the dots wherever possible. So if you think about what they're trying to say, I think you all know this as well. A lot of what they are professing that they're going to be building already exists in a lot of the games that we play. The only difference is that a lot of the games that we play are very niche because they got, either a zombie factor or it's very voxel looking. So they don't appeal to many people per se. But the level above that is the fact that they want to bring in other aspects of life to be in this environment. And if you think about it, that's going to be quite a tall order, right? Because if you're going to be living, breathing, everything, between work and play in this environment, what does it look like? And today, we only have the devices which we know, which is your laptop, mobile, VR headsets. So they're not as commonplace yet. But I mean, having said that, I think even though we know that this notion is still quite far away, we are in it as a starting point, or maybe past the starting point. And that's, I think, the exciting part. Personally, I don't think there's one metaverse. I think there is going to be a few. And then over time, it will be merged whereby companies will then see the value of allowing their IPs to be ported over. I don't think it's going to be ported over based on company to company. It's probably going to be based on blockchain or some kind of a currency. But I think to end off with my personal feel is we're starting to understand and see that more and more people are trying to take control of everything that's possible. So from investments to property and things like that. And the whole DeFi and DApp, is the one that's fronting it. So Metaverse today wouldn't be as hot if it's not for, GameStop and everything that's happened within the crypto space. But people can see that the power is now passed back to the user. I don't want to, put my money in Lehman and then next thing you know, I got, bankrupt. So their whole history of finance that started this ball rolling, I would say, is now prompting a lot of people to make sure that they are in control in some form or another of whatever they can. And if blockchain is going to be that way because it's decentralized, it becomes more powerful. So I think that's where the direction is, because in time to come, do I want to have a piece of IP that is not going to be parked with a company, but I know it's going to be there on the blockchain? Yeah, sure. And so forth for stocks and so on and so forth, and my house and my, so all these things would be decentralized, and I know that it's not going to be run by somebody with their own interests, in the area. So I think that's essentially how I interpret as the crux of where this whole wave is beginning to pick up on.
Casie, do you see this as, and thank you very much for that, Lionel. I mean, the decentralized aspect, everybody's got something going on, whether it's Meta announcing or Facebook. They haven't changed the name completely yet officially, but everyone's got their own sort of, I guess, skin in the game. This idea of Metaverse is to be one singular universe, basically Web 3.0, where we're immersed in it. This idea of having one singular space that is kind of labeled Metaverse, is that really feasible and functional?
I don't think so. And I'll tell you why. If we look at the internet right now, we have many different platforms. We have to log in to many different social media websites. We have to log into all these other things. Remember those types of passwords. Most of the time we forget them and we have to reset them over and over again. When I look at one of my favorite platforms of the Metaverse, which is Roblox, and I think that the adoption of Roblox during the pandemic has actually fueled these conversations that we're having right now. What essentially they have is that overall platform where the players are going in and out of games. So it's a kind of like an open flow of a system, but it's just like a walled garden to go into different experiences. So that is only one part of whatever the Metaverse is going to be. But in my opinion, because we have different governments that have a stake in consumer technology, Canada or China for one. Then we also have like the big namers who want to own the Metaverse as well. So I don't think there's going to be this totally completely decentralized flow of the Metaverse. That's just what I think. I think it's unrealistic. It is very utopian and would be awesome, but I don't.
Roy, what do you feel? You've seen a lot of the announcements. We've exchanged a lot over pings too as well, and it's like every day there's something new. I mean, even today Disney announced in their earnings report, or at least the CEO had spoken to investors and suggested that, yep, they're going to get into the fray as well. They have been in there in the past. Unity bought Peter Jackson's studio too as well, What the Digital. This is, I mean, it's been a phenomenal just continuance of the week for announcements. But again, from your perspective, what does this all mean? What does this all say?
I think to me, I mean, like when I was young, there was Second Life, and then the concept of this virtual world thing has been around for a long time, and then there was the economy back in Second Life already, and a lot of big players, big name, big brands had the experience of doing that. I mean, I was really young at the time, so it's, I don't know, maybe you had more of experience with it, but today, we still see like what Casie mentioned, Roblox. There's other games like Red Room where they have a lot of user-generated worlds inside them. They have like economy where you can spend money buying stuff. And And I think it's not going to be easy, like trying to connect every one of them together, because everyone works differently. So I don't know. I feel like it's kind of a really hype word, and then something that we will have to like wait and see what will really happen.
Are there any
Everyone's
out of? I'm sorry, Roy. Go ahead.
Yeah, everyone's like all the big names, like big brands, gonna say like, oh, we're gonna be in the metaverse because it's hype and everything. But I'm sure they will be really easy to drop it out of their brand marketing stuff if it goes like haywire or nothing comes out of it. Yeah, that's what I feel.
Are there, out of all the announcements we've seen in the last 2 weeks, is there anything that really for you, Roy, stands out that excites you most?
I don't know. Everything's like there's too much here and there, I think. Yeah. So nothing really too much. I think it comes and go. I get excited today, and tomorrow I forget about it, I think.
Well, we've seen such a mix. I mean, even Microsoft weighing in on the enterprise space, and you have Facebook also, of course, trying to tap that workspace, the work from home, and just the evolution of the work from home experience, and what the evolution of working in a sense, what that should look like. It seems like we're getting a lot of overlap. Is that kind of what you're seeing yourselves, or do you think who can really win this? Is it going to be shared responsibility of every business to be able to make this thing work? I just don't know how they're necessarily going to be able to do it all together.
You bring up a really great point. How are we going to bring it all together? In Internet 2.0, it's everybody's competing against each other for the same real estate or a certain vertical or a certain market. And now, even when we're working on projects, whether it's a VR project or an AR project, you need many companies actually working together to bring something together. And that is just the nature of this industry. People that were competitors need to work together to be able to build something amazing. And so is this a winner takes all sort of thing? Or is this this is your place, this is your place, you're good at this, you do that? I think that is maybe what the entire ecosystem needs. I'm excited to see who is going to be given the opportunity to take the lead in a certain area, and I think that will be a struggle, and probably really interesting to watch what happens too.
Lionel, same question I threw at Roy is, like, out of all these announcements that we've seen, is there anything that really piques your interest most? I mean, you've got a wide swath of different things that have been announced, and I'll just rip through some real quick ones. So you've got Meta, which we all have heard about enough of in terms of their acquisitions and name change, and really Horizons is on the play already. We saw the video from Mark Zuckerberg sort of espousing what the future looks like. You've got ByteDance acquired China-based Pico in September. You've got Microsoft with HoloLens, obviously on the hardware side. They just announced the work that they're going to be planning around Teams. Xiaomi is out there. They originally did the Oculus Go with Facebook. They had the Mi VR Play. Not huge, strong offerings, but you can't count them out. There is even a smaller player too. But also even in the AR space, spectacles from Snap. Ray-Ban has Stories AR glasses with Facebook. Magic Leap got another $540 million in October, giving them a $2 billion valuation. Apple, we don't know what's going to happen with them. There's a lot of teasing going on about them launching something big in 2020. Alibaba's trademarked a few metaverse namings, although the Chinese government's kind of looming and hovering around that space. Tencent has this amazing gaming ecosystem, so you got everything in there. What's really knocking you out of the park there? What's knocking it out of the park?
Actually, I mean, these news are really exciting, but again, they are coming from far west, and the question really is like, wow, great, all these things are happening, but how is it going to impact us? I'm actually more excited with the fact that I'm starting to see a lot of local regional news. Like today I shared about the fact that DBS shared an article in the Business Times that they're ready to enter the Metaverse. So I think the local news and the local regional players, they are also involved in this is the exciting part of it, because it's a bit closer to home, and I think the opportunities are there. But I think below and beneath the headlines of what you have just mentioned, and even local banks, starting to see a lot of these jobs that are being remotely offered to us here, be it crypto.com or Binance opening up positions here. I think that is the exciting part, because suddenly with COVID and remote working, people here, talents here will have equal footing into some of these big news and announcements. They can actually be contributing in some form or another to that part, of the whatever they're going to be putting forward to build. And then I think it would be very exciting, because it gives a lot of the talents here some opportunities to do that. And then with that, hopefully some of the companies here will then be able to participate as well. So I think that flow down effect, not obvious headline, is actually something I was super excited about.
What's your take on the Seoul government, city government
announcement,
right? And Roy, I mean, you've worked a lot with the Singapore government in some of the events that we've done in the past, or you've done in the past with the AsiaVR Association. Be pleased to hear from both of you on that side, and Casie, feel free to weigh in with your perspective on where do governments come into this too, because there's investment areas that we have to consider too.
Should we say a lot about government in this chat?
Well,
no, I'm kidding.
As comfortable as you are.
I think I will start. I think it's good that one government takes the lead, because it might incentivize, inspire, motivate others. But I think other governments have their own plan in some form or another. And announcing that publicly like so could be a very economic kind of a thing, right? Foreign investments and all that jazz. So we don't really know until we see what's transpired. And even as the article is out, some people are also saying 3 million from the government is quite small. So what exactly are they doing, right? So I think the fact is, if somebody is really looking into it, I think that's a good thing. And if Seoul is the one to start it, then hopefully we can actually get our government to also open up some kind of incentive to. But that being said, I think it's like Seoul is suddenly also part of the headlines which you just read, right? From million watch TV show on Netflix of what they produce to pop bands and now technology. So I think just looking to them to be inspired is a great learning from my end anyway.
I feel like the government's happy with the current step of digitizing stuff at the moment. We haven't finished that part yet, so the metaverse is something in the future, I believe. So similarly, I think Singapore is quite doing okay on digitization. So, but across the world, I think there's other governments who haven't reached that step even yet. So are still doing the same as us. So that is something that is probably going to take the rest of the decade to finish, and then maybe after that, then we can talk about the metaverse if it really happens. Yeah.
I have it kind of funny. Whenever I talk to somebody from the government, like that's the first thing they ask is like the metaverse. I'm like, we wouldn't be having this conversation if we met 6 months ago. I'm so proud to be here in Singapore and be a permanent resident. I'm not a citizen yet, but I think the Singapore government is doing a fantastic job of attracting companies to come here. Not a lot of governments say, hey, come here, partner with a local company, and we'll give you $1 million to build augmented reality. I've been helping the IMDA facilitate partnership consortiums that connect companies with a Singaporean company in order to apply for the grant funding. And it's a $30 million fund. They opened it up to VR and AR just last year. So that is telling that the government has their eye on implementing this technology. Next week, I'm going to be doing a GovTech and Intel event with not all, but 14 government agencies who all have problem statements that they want to see an AR, VR, or immersive technology solution for. So that is pretty amazing, and I'm really excited to maybe share a little bit of the insider information after that. But I haven't heard of any other ecosystem that has what Singapore has.
Well, from a developer standpoint, we talked about this earlier, and I think Lionel, you referred to this as well, is that there are going to be opportunities, right? I mean, surely if you're building the web 3.0, if it is that, it's going to open up opportunities across the board, whether it's health tech, whether it's obviously in creation. That's in a massive space that needs to be addressed too as well. Programming. What if you're a developer? What should you be thinking about at this stage?
Wow. Okay, so I think there is a two-part to that question if I go think about it, because right now we develop whatever we can based on whatever we have access to, which is a flat website, a URL, a mobile app, which is still Android and iOS, for example. And those channels are the ones that people are understanding to use. I mean, if you still want to develop something that you have to download and install in your laptop, for example, so those are still the channels. So in the short to interim term, those will still. So instead of thinking of what to develop, it's like what is the final outcome that could derive from this. But a question to answer to that would be how to that integrate to other platforms that will allow some of these. Was it a URL? Was it a mobile app? So the wish list of what to develop would be how to integrate to some of the names that you mentioned. Can we bring in our own world into Fortnite without their custom editor, for example? Do we have to use theirs if the art style is different, for example? I mean, now we can't. But those are the things that we hope to actually start to bring in and see whether we can inject our originality into some of these existing platforms. So I think that's the wish list in the short term. But we're also starting to see that like Roblox has got slightly more realistic avatars now. Have you seen that? Compared to the previous ones. Yeah. So I think these progressions are starting to take shape in some of these. Whether Fortnite will go the other way and use something a little less realistic than what they have, for example. But I think eventually, if some of these big engines and big platforms can allow for a whole range of different developer input, not just look and feel, but interactivity, I think that would be an exciting proposition. Yeah.
Right.
But in the long term, it is quite challenging because will headsets become your commonplace that we can lift it out of the pocket and wear? Those are the things that I think in the long term we would love to develop strictly for. Yeah.
Thanks, Lionel. That's a good point. I mean, Roy, from your perspective, again, from that developer mindset, and knowing that you've engaged most out of all of us on the board with the developer community, if you're looking at the two avenues, there's the consumer and there's the enterprise. Where's the best bet if you're a developer at this point in Asia, right? Because again, as Lionel suggested, we're hearing it all from the US. A lot of it's coming from the US, but in Asia, it's still, we're still waiting for the big full-on investment beyond the $3 million that a government would put into it. We want a little bit more than that. But if you're thinking about where the really good track at the moment, what would you think would be the best play at this moment?
I mean, if you really want to do it as a business, of course, enterprise is something that is easier to look at, I would say, because you get money from there. You can find like real customers. You can find businesses to develop stuff for. But if something that you don't mind doing as a hobby, as an interest, and something to just take a look at while it's still growing, then I think the consumer space is something that can be really exciting. As you know, like these big players like Meta now, they are developing their Horizon stuff. If you can be a consumer and develop stuff inside that, I think that is actually quite something that could be potentially rewarding in the future. Yeah.
What's your take on Microsoft's offering from an enterprise standpoint? The Teams approach, does it really hit the mark?
The Teams approach, I think they are not trying to overreach too much. Unlike Facebook likes to paint Facebook or Meta is painting like a huge picture of what the future can be, whereas I think Microsoft is trying to like take small steps and work towards that. I think so. This is I think just something that maybe their marketing or their PR has they have a different preference for doing stuff like that. I think. Yeah.
I'm going to throw a question. We've got a question out here. Maybe we could field this, in case you could grab this too. Does the panel think that? So this is. I'm going to go with this. This is from Kim XR. There is a drastic change in the level of hype for Metaverse recently. Consequently, the need for talents to support this growth would also increase. As someone who is in the midst of a career pivot to VR or XR, there is a deficit in terms of what is taught in schools and the actual skills that are needed in the industry. What's your take on that?
Me?
Okay. Yeah, go for it, Casie. What do you think?
Oh, this is a big one, Kim. So this is like a challenge that I have personally been dealing with myself. And then also I've noticed a lot of other developers as well. They see job roles being put out by companies, by a recruiter that doesn't know anything about immersive technology. The application goes through. Maybe they get an interview. There is no, like, it's like you're talking to an apple and the other person's talking about oranges, because it's not the talent being mismatched. It is that whole HR process in order to hire these people. Now, if we look at from like the startup perspectives as well, startups need to hire not just developers, but people in marketing, people in finance, like people that do that. But there's also a risk if they're not startup-y people. So there's quite a big gap when it comes to somebody that just came out of the university and they learned 3D design. They don't have the access to the tools because there's new tools and new releases coming out every single week. There's like a new SDK coming out every single week. There's a new framework that is being released all the time. The traditional schooling for the tools and the skill sets that a developer or somebody in immersive technology needs is not happening in the schools. It's happening by the collaborative sharing that people are doing. And there hasn't been a solution yet. I've been quite upset about that and trying to figure out how I could help people. I know of one agency, they're called Immersive Search. They actually have one person in Singapore, and they're trying to fill those gaps for companies to actually understand what the role is and then make sure the job description is correct, and then go through their candidates and help their candidates understand exactly what that role is and what type of frameworks they are, rather than wasting their time going on interviews and then having to do technical tests or technical interviews for a framework they don't even know that wasn't even listed on the original job description. So
that's really brilliant. I wasn't aware of that. Thanks for sharing that. Is there, if there's any additional information people need, how would they get, where would you point them?
So Immersive Search, for anybody that's looking for a developer job or a technical job or PM job, immersive.search.com, and link up with Emilio's. They're really about like supporting and educating people too, not just being a matchmaking agency.
Right on. Thanks for that, Casie. Roy, your perspective in terms of the the developer space. Is there enough talent out there at the moment, overall, from your perspective?
I think that I mean, from the game development scene, there's definitely enough talent, but I think that right now Facebook is trying to like lead the way. I guess to develop a lot of this kind of toolkits for people, which definitely will help in the growth of the metaverse, I would say. Because right now we see that a lot of the multiplayer experiences that we are having is in the tens. I don't know when it will hit hundreds, but that is something that will definitely have to a barrier that I think every developer is facing. And with their billions, I think maybe Facebook will be the one to enable experiences where thousands of people can come together and go to concerts and go for events and that sort of thing together. And that is, I think that is something that really needs to be overcome before we see the metaverse forming. Yeah, and that's not something that can be easily done by by going to school and learning stuff from there. Yeah, so the research and development over at Facebook definitely is really important over. Yeah.
It's also early. It's also nascent in many regards.
Definitely.
Lionel, how do you? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ryan.
And another job that could really come, and maybe that's what Facebook is hiring, is the creation of content inside the Horizon worlds that they are building. When it comes to like other games like Roblox, Rec Room, they have their own users who came together organically to like develop all the worlds inside them. So we don't know whether that will happen for Facebook or Meta. So maybe they are trying to like buy their way into creation of all this content. Yeah, so I think that is definitely something else that you not everyone can be a developer for these worlds, like at a code level. But I think when using all the tools that they create for you to make content in game, like what Roblox and Rec Room does, I think that is another kind of career that might pop up over the next few years. Yeah, you can be a reporter in game, reporting on things like what YouTube has created a lot of different new jobs for people. I think Metaverse will do the same thing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Fully agree on that. I think you're starting to see it. You can see it in VR chat, even just some of the amazing artistic creations that are popping up, environments and such. So a whole new sort of a VR environment or metaverse environment creator. I think we're going to see some amazing new titles in the next while, just like we did in this very start of the web 1.0 and the predictions there. Lionel, how do you hire for this space from your own experience?
Yeah, difficult. But first, hi Kim. Yeah, so I think to directly answer the question, the schools today are actually teaching different subsets of what's required. So for example, we all know that there's always better to have more developers, but with developers who take on whatever course they will take on, they will really master, one aspect of the ecosystem, be it developing on a game engine or how to incorporate SDKs. But I think for the longest time, even before when Immersively was still a startup, we basically were struggling with the other roles. I couldn't find business people, marketing people, and largely had to do a lot of them myself. So I think, but that's not to say that we need a business in XR to actually be business in XR. So if you did a business course at NUS, for example, the essence and fundamentals, it's still applicable. It's a question of whether you will come out and do your own bit of just upskilling yourself in the knowledge of XR to match them two together. So I think that part is not something that people can join the dots with. And obviously they don't join the dots because the role is not available, and then they have to actually do this on their own without getting paid before they have a recognizable portfolio. So I think that's the hard part of it, because if that doesn't happen, then nobody is going to hire you, because most of them will see that you don't have a portfolio. So I think basically the large part of the answer to the question is, like what hackers usually do when they finish school. They have a portfolio of hackathon projects. they upload it, they can show their prospective employees, or they do their own startup because they know they can after doing their own thing. But it's a big sacrifice of their own time to be invested to do their own thing and show that they can do it with the portfolios. Then it becomes, visible to employers per se. But again, by the time you can do your own thing and have this whole slate of portfolios, you might not actually want to be hired because you can do your own thing. Then you start up in your own startup and so on. So I think the industry is actually moving. I'm connected to many of the IHLs. They're already looking at a lot of these, from 5G to XR, and there's a specialist dip in NYU, Nanyang Poly as well, right? So they are doing what they can. But I think it's not going to be so easy to say, can any of the universities or polys have a full-on course that will actually fit you right in to an evolving industry. I think that's hard.
Thanks, Lionel. Appreciate that. Just in the essence of time here, I'm going to close it out with one final question here. And we're going to save this, hopefully, some of the other things that we wanted to talk about, which were like NFTs and the evolution of AR. There's just so much to unpack, but I think we could be on here for at least an hour and a half. So Casie, from your point of view, we'll do a little round table crystal ball sort of effort here, typical sort of form and fashion of panels. What is your outlook? What are your predictions? Do you have anything that comes top of mind for 2022 and what this space will look like in, say, a year's time?
Gosh, I don't know. I have my vision of what I would like to see.
That'll do.
Okay. Singapore will see a massive company being born and bred here with hopefully my company. We'll also see a massive drive of talent into the region, not just from my company, but other startups and Meta. Came across to me that Meta is going to be headquartered in Singapore. That's where they're officially saying that it's going to be. I also know that there are some really fantastic hardware and software companies coming out of India. So we're going to be seeing hopefully some really great companies coming up in the next year.
Fantastic. Thanks, Casie. Roy, over to you. Let me just unmute you here.
Yeah, I think right now the one to look for is still Meta. Now they have this laser-sighted focus on the Metaverse. I think they're going to pour in more and more resources into building this. I mean, they have to, right? Because TikTok is going to overtake Facebook, or has it already? Yeah. So they need their next big thing, I think. Yeah. So let's wait and see. Yeah, man.
Right on. Thank you very much. And Lionel, any final sort of predictions and crystal ball outlook for 2022? What would you like to see happen?
Well, it's quite a tough question actually, but maybe I'll end off with this. I think other than what we have shared, the notion that most of us who have tried VR would experience 360 spatial, and then we take it off and then we look at our keyboard and our flat screen and our mobile screen, then we feel the disconnect because we can't reach in and feel the spatial space around us. So I think, based on that notion, why are profile pictures flat instead of avatars? And then now avatars is the rage. Why are experiences video like now, right? Everything is flat. I can't walk around you, or we can sit in a circle. So I think basically that direction of people experiencing and wanting to really go beyond the current interaction channels is where, I guess, one of the things of where this is going to, if everything in different aspects of our life is a little bit more spatial, a little bit less flat, a little bit more inept, kind of a feel, then I think, that's kind of where we're going with the Metaverse, for example. So my crystal balling, if you want to call it, is not that there's going to be one company per se, but many different ones that fill in these gaps. Would there be one that will help with currency? Then we don't have to deal with cards even, right? And now that we are dealing with phones, Same with interaction via, Zoom or video call. Is there a better way to do this rather than how we have been doing this? And avatars are going around is again a very split reaction, because people don't like it. Some people prefer Zoom, and their avatars are not like them. Business people have complained that this is not me. So there's a lot of this that I think is very difficult. But people are starting to see and trying out, because they know that beyond flat video, there must be something else. I must be able to click to wave my avatar, which I can't, So they're kind of, I guess, born out of the fact that we are starting to see the immersion beyond VR creeping into these other channels is really, I guess, where people are starting to think about. And if possible, in the future is whether startups can actually rise to fill in those gaps, and started to create some of these so that they can all come together to look at, beyond 2022.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I agree on the startup side. If we can find a way for a diplomatic sort of and cohesive solution around all this, that the companies can somehow work together in some degree and capacity, be able to enable the startups to be able to plug into this effectively and easily. That's the big challenge. You mentioned it earlier, Lionel, and like, how do you necessarily as a developer build something that is going to scale across multiple spaces, right? That's the ambition of this whole effort of the metaverse, is to have something singular. That's kind of what the meaning seems to have been suggested out there. We need those companies to really take that into consideration. If it is going to be universal and it's going to create a lot of new opportunities, it has to be accessible. And my dream, I would love to see access be much more in the mix, right? Right now, it's pretty much a talk of those who can talk about it and afford to talk about it, right? There's a whole bunch of opportunities in the education space that that can be tapped, and there are in certain quarters of the world, mostly in the West, and also health tech. I'd also love to see that the conversation around dystopian universes and all of that, or verses and all that, this conversation that is kind of negative, disappear when we start to see something that actually is, and more research to suggest that and provide evidence that this is actually beneficial or can be used in a beneficial way for society. I mean, I think we've got a lot of detractors out there. In the last 2 weeks, the headlines, many of them have been quite negative and often, I think, ill-informed. So hopefully in 2022, we'll have more clarity around this, and research and initiatives and investment that can power that in a positive way. So maybe it's a bit too altruistic and idealistic, but that's our hope anyway, isn't it? Anyway, thank you everyone for taking time out. We've got to continue this dialogue and discussion, because it's not going to stop. It's going to continue to steamroll. And I think, it's great to see this kind of taking lift again after a couple of years of quiet. So, it's all good. So thank you very much again, everyone. We'll keep you tuned into any other future roundtable sessions and panel sessions. Kim XR, thanks so much for your question. And do check out our AsiaVR Association site, and obviously keep adding stuff to our Facebook group page. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
See you soon.